That was See You in the Funnies right here on CincyUnderground.com. Live, local, and lit. Well, it's that time. It's that beat. It's that beat that everyone knows when I'm about to drop the latest Canada topic. But today, it's coming from the expert themselves. That is Amy from Sensible Norwood. Give a round of applause for Amy. I don't have the applause button, so that was me giving the applause. But Amy is one of the people here with Sensible Norwood that basically got it decriminalized within the city limits of Norwood, Ohio, the city we're broadcasting from. So, Amy, let's start with that. How did that process go of getting it decriminalized? And then we'll talk on to where it's at right now.
Well, it was actually a long process. We started the process back in 2016, and we were denied ballot placement. So in 2017, we rewrote the language, and in 2018, we got it on the ballot and won by 73% of the vote.
So if it was won by 73% of the population of the city, that means the people have clearly spoken that they want, well, recreational more or less, but they want to decriminalize, no fines, no times. But since this has happened, the Norwood police come out and said that they're still going to enforce the state law because it is a state law. Now, why is this such a problem, and why is this a concern, and what should people do with that? I mean, the people obviously voted it in, so does that mean that their vote doesn't count anymore, or what does that mean?
Well, we really can't figure out why Norwood has chosen not to enforce the law. Of course, the people's voices should matter. Our police chief here is not an elected official. He's an appointed official. So it seems as though personal opinions of 2 or 3 elected officials basically decided for the rest of the city how they were going to enforce this law. So, we just keep working with them, but we haven't gotten too far. We've done public records requests, and they are still citing people under state code. Like I said, why? We have no idea. There's no financial benefit to the city whatsoever because all the money goes to the county at that point.
So if they're citing people within the city for basically anything under 200 grams, which is the law now, no fine, no time, is there a way that they can go about fighting this, or do they just have to suck it up and deal with the fine right now?
Well, there most definitely is. I would certainly recommend going down to Hamilton County Municipal Court and having your day in court. Get a hold of Sensible Norwood. We can help you. We're not lawyers by any means, but we have armed a couple people with a defense in other cities, and their cases were dismissed. So it's basically just going down, telling the judge that this is, the law in where you live, and this is where you were prosecuted, and that you expect to be, charged under the Norwood Code, which would be no fines, no time.
So with that being said, basically we should just keep pushing for full recreational no matter what, because we got a long fight still ahead of us, obviously. And Ohio does want recreational. As far as I'm understanding, they've done a pre-poll, and it's like 64% or something of the population of the state wants recreational.
Yes, full adult use.
So how should we just stick together and protest, or how should we as the public average Joe just go about helping this cause, besides just screaming that they want it legal?
Well, if another volunteer group comes that was doing statewide legislation trying to get something on the ballot and something passed, you need a lot of volunteers to get out on the streets and gather signatures, and that's not 10 dedicated people that go out, once a week. That's thousands of people across the state, every day out gathering signatures. You need almost 1 million signatures to get something on the ballot here in Ohio.
Right, but I believe we could definitely do that because the people clearly want it here in Ohio. And I think if maybe we need to just go above them and figure out a way of wording it so that they can basically not just shut it down, because they keep shutting it down. We've been stalled out for 4 or 5 years now, since 2015?
Yes.
And now they're still pushing it on the back burner, like we're not even allowed to talk about cannabis, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a weird spot for the public to be in, because they know medical is legal here. We finally got our first dispensary here in Southwest Ohio after years and years in the process. Everything's a slow process in Ohio as far as this cannabis stuff, but none of it makes sense. the whole 200 grams here in Norwood that you would supposedly be allowed to possess, Cincinnati is also trying to decriminalize 200 grams. Every other city across the whole state that has decriminalized 200 grams, but Cincinnati is fighting whether to decriminalize 100 grams or decriminalize. I think they're talking about 28 grams now.
Yes.
So why do they got to be so different than any other city?
Yeah, actually, it's one city councilman, it seemed like, that wrote the initiative for the 28 grams. I think most of council in Cincinnati is pretty on board with the 100 grams. They originally talked about 200. Dayton, Ohio did the same thing through city council. They passed 100 grams. So essentially what they're doing is passing a watered-down version of what we the people passed in Norwood. There is nothing to stop the citizens of Cincinnati from taking this to the ballot and saying, hey, we want 200 grams and we also want hash oil decriminalized, because the Cincinnati initiative does not even discuss hash oil. Norwood covers flour, we cover hash oil, and we also cover a certain amount of gifting.
Okay, so Sensible Norwood is also behind home grow cause, right? Are they also in support of caretaker law?
We definitely support caretaker law, and we definitely support home grow in Ohio. It's really not fair that, a few wealthy individuals can be labeled entrepreneurs and grow cannabis legally, where if, you or I were to do that, then we're labeled criminals and looking at potential jail time. So,
right.
We really need to come into the times here in Ohio. We shouldn't even be talking decriminalization. We should be talking legalization. But unfortunately, this is what the state has left us with right now.
So with that being said, do you think we missed the forefront of the cannabis industry? Like, do you think we would have been on the forefront if we would have legalized 4 years ago? I know it was a monopoly or whatever, but it was a start in the right direction.
Well, I went back and forth with that monopoly initiative. As with the casinos, it's all about thinking outside of the box, reading the language, finding a loophole. You can open a business. Everyone sees cultivation centers. Everyone sees dispensaries. Nobody thinks about these businesses that are completely outside of the box that would have allowed you to make money in the industry under issue 3, and it did also allow for a 4-plant home grow, which the more time passes, the more difficult it's going to get to get these home grows in states like ours.
Do you think it will be easier now that Michigan has went recreational and Pennsylvania is also going recreational very soon?
I think it might help push Ohio towards recreational. As far as chances of a home grow, that's going to depend. If the citizens bring forth an initiative, then I think we got a great chance of home grow. If we allow the state to write the bill like we did with the medical bill, there will be no home grow.
We didn't necessarily allow them. There was a bunch of people coming up with initiatives, and the legislative just kind of hopped in and made their own rules up, and then they stalled it out on purpose. They basically dangled it over our face like, yeah, you might get it. Nah, probably not.
Right. Well, there was a medical bill coming that year, Ohioans for Medical Marijuana. The initiative was fully funded. There was a 12-plant home grow, and the majority of activists in the state of Ohio were on board with this initiative. It was going to make ballot. It was going to pass. The state of Ohio basically said, hey, we want to write the rules. We want to control this industry, so we're going to write something. We're going to shove it through. I mean, it was like maybe 30 days, start to finish, 45 days, that they passed this through the House, the Senate, and it was signed by the governor. This was not a program that is designed to take care of patients.
It definitely wasn't designed for the patients. It's done proved that over and over and over. Like, if this was truly medicinal, they would have not have stalled it out for years and years and years. And then on top of that, we would not be the most expensive state for medical marijuana. We would not be 300% higher in price than any other state. So obviously, it's clearly not for the patients. So maybe we should do our part to erase that line between medical and recreational, because it's all medicinal. It's all medicinal. There's no denying that it's all absolutely medicinal. We just need to do away with that imaginary line. And honestly, it needs to be legalized federally. Like, half the country is legalizing. You can buy legal marijuana on the same house or on the same street as the White House. You know what I mean? The whole world is legalizing. The whole world is legalizing. Like, right in front of our eyes, and here we are still stalling it out as a state and a country, and even as a city for that matter.
Exactly. Well, federal legalization would definitely help us on the way here in Ohio, because they say that's a huge drawback. Universities don't want to do lab testing. They don't want to research because they're afraid that they could lose federal funding because it's federal legal. We all know the struggles with the banking industry. We all know in some states you may lose your right to, bear arms, which is another right that's given to us in our Constitution.
That's a huge concern with a lot of people. A lot of people don't even want to consider getting their medical card solely just because of that reason. And I try to tell them that's not true. They've tried to do that in every state, and it's almost like a scare tactic almost. And they really can't do that, because if that's the case, any person that is prescribed any kind of medication should not be allowed to own a firearm. Any person that drinks should not be allowed to own a firearm. That's basically what you're saying. If a medical marijuana patient, marijuana is not even the word to use anymore. Cannabis is the word that we need to slowly fade in and get rid of the word marijuana, because it's tied to a lot of other stuff. But cannabis is the word we need to use, and I got to cut it off right here. I got some more tunes for you right after this break, and we'll be right back with some Canna Talk. That was Matt Waters with Wild right here on CincyUnderground.com, live, local, and lit. We got some more Canna Topic for you, coming straight from sensible Norwood. Miss Amy. So, Miss Amy, what do you think about all these schools not actually volunteering or wanting to test the cannabis? I know Wilmington is the only college in Southwest Ohio that I do believe that is willing to test. And then as far as schools being affiliated with it at all, there's that school in around Athens or whatever, Shawnee State College. They got a 4-year program in genetics or something of cannabis, and that's all I've heard of besides up north as far as cultivation schools and whatnot. But so why are these schools so afraid of it? Is it the stigma that has been around cannabis forever? Is that what they're just scared to get involved, period? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot, unfortunately, a negative stigma behind it. And, any college, again, that takes federal funding, is real leery to do anything as far as the cannabis industry is concerned, as far as educational, again, for fear that, they could potentially lose federal funding.
That makes sense. I could see that. But so on that point, then it should just be federally legal so we could be done with it. So all schools should have access to do whatever research they can on this plant, because there's still research being discovered every single day on this plant. So why not? The school should be on the forefront of it to be the first to discover whatever new cannabinoid or whatever this does for whatever cause. You know what I mean? That's my opinion. So Sensible Norwood is obviously about the free market of cannabis, more or less. They're not necessarily for the medicinal side. I mean, you're pro cannabis all the way around, but I'm with you. The medical program here in Ohio is nothing but a failure. So as far as the recreational side of things, or however you want to word it, free market, what does that really, do you see that in the future of Ohio as far as having home grow or being able to treat the plant as far as a tomato plant even?
I would love to say yes, because of course I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I mean, we should be able to, like you said, grow cannabis like we can grow tomatoes in our backyard. Unfortunately, that's nothing that the Ohio government, I believe personally, is ever going to be something that they would tolerate, just a complete free market. Tax and regulate, and, unfortunately, as hard as this is to say, it's not until corporate America started paying attention that these laws really started moving forward, and it's all because, that they see the financial ability, and, once you see how much money you can make, then unfortunately it becomes all about the money, so they're gonna regulate out the small person as much as they can.
That makes sense. Speaking of the medical here in Ohio and money, before they even had their first seed in the ground, they made over $1 million. Now that's pretty remarkable. So they made all that money before. This was like 3 years ago. Now we've been trying to get this program up and running for 3 years, and Florida started their program after us, and they're fully up and running. They're selling flour. They're selling concentrates. Ohio can't figure out what they're going to do. Oh, we're not going to sell flour. We're going to sell flour. You can't smoke flour, but we're going to sell flour for home extraction. Like, Ohio's got the craziest laws, and you almost got to keep up with it on a daily basis to see what's going on with it. And then all you find out is that they're just back selling it, and they just keep pushing it to the back burner, and they just keep toying with us. So I've heard a few people say maybe they should just go around and plant seeds all over the state. I think they already get the message. I'm not opposed to that. I guess just plant them at the governor's office. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's what we got to do to get the message across is just plant seeds all over the state, and maybe they'll finally get it. Or the old saying, if everyone hops on board and just starts growing, I guess they can't really arrest everyone.
Well, there's that term called civil disobedience, and there is something to be said about that. Unfortunately, in the cannabis industry in Ohio, it's been really difficult to get the citizens to come out in large enough numbers to really make any kind of effect on legislation. So,
Do you think that's because they're scared of the stigma behind cannabis, or they're scared to even be affiliated with the drug culture, I guess, is what they're probably scared of?
well, so many people fear that they're going to lose their jobs, or I've had people tell me that they can't sign a petition because you're a teacher. Well, I mean, you're a teacher, no offense, you should be better educated than that. This is a little thing called freedom of speech, and that is not illegal, so you cannot be terminated for signing petitions. Maybe they'll make it difficult on you. Maybe they'll drug test you and you'll turn up positive. It could happen. But to just stifle yourself because you're a teacher or, something like that is, it's not a good thing to do.
So, well, yeah, I think the parents should actually educate their kids on the plant of what it does. I understand they want the age to be 21 and older. They did that with alcohol. There's not a kid that didn't drink underage, you know what I mean? Most kids start drinking at like 13 or 14. The same stuff's going to happen with cannabis. So honestly, instead of making all these crazy rules, the public should be more and more educated on the plant itself. And the teachers, and it's not just the teachers, it's the whole country, they have a closed-minded ideal of cannabis. They don't want to accept that there is good things about cannabis, more good things than bad, actually. They still want to believe the old stuff that we've been taught for the last 100 years or whatever, and they're still into that. They don't believe that the man-made drugs are worse than cannabis. They just don't want to believe it. They just block it out. So with that being by itself makes it very hard. We got about a minute and a half here. Is there anything you really, really want to say to the listeners?
Yeah, I would just let people know, for the people that are against cannabis, the propaganda that we've been given for years, it makes it really hard to see things differently. So I would just like to ask that everybody open your mind up and do actual research. Look at the facts. Look at the money that's being made, in cities that are struggling economically. Look at how it's saving lives and healing patients, and don't just get your education from anti-drug websites because they all say the same thing. Anybody can stand there and read you a sentence from a book, but there's real research out there, and people need to look at it.
I agree. So with that, do your part in any way you can to help this cause if you are pro-cannabis. There is quite a few groups starting right now as like We Grow Ohio. They're for the cause. Do your research, do your part in whatever aspect you can to help this cause. And if you need any help or any way you want to help Sensible Norwood, please feel free to contact Amy at Sensible Norwood. She's on Facebook. Are you on all social media platforms?
Mostly just Facebook.
Just Facebook? Just contact her on Facebook, hit her up. Real nice lady. She's very open-minded, and she's very knowledgeable of all the subject matter. And if you have any trouble within the city of Norwood with cannabis-related subjects as far as possession, please contact Sensible Norwood. Got some more tunes coming right up for you right after this commercial break, right here on CincyUnderground.com, live, local, and lit. Thank you, Amy.